Well, what a you-know-what show yesterday with AYR stock. We're going to be taking a look at the news. They had some delayed financials, cease trade order, strategic review. Basically, in a nutshell, that all is extremely bad, and the stock crashed over 50%. We're going to take a look here. I really hope that people didn't go too heavy on this name. I've been screaming from the rooftops for a while now that this was a very risky name. And I'd be surprised if they were able to make it out of this rut that they're in, and they have a big hole to dig themselves out of. So we're going to take a look at this news today. We'll take a look at the chart, but all I can say is just be extremely careful with this company. I mentioned that we had a lot of competition in the U.S. We're going to see a lot of the same growing pains, no pun intended, as the Canadian companies in the U.S. Maybe even more so because there's so much competition, price compression. It's still very difficult to operate, access to banking, and there's so many producers as well, and now you're starting to see Canadian LPs enter the U.S. Think of Canopy and Acreage and all the other, the hemp products that we're seeing. There's going to be a lot of issues and problems for these MSOs, and a lot of debt too. So it's going to be very, very. I hope people are learning their lessons from the Canadian market. That's all I can say. And if you're going to look to add to AYR, again, this isn't financial advice. It's for entertainment purposes only. I'm not telling you to buy, sell, or hold, but I would just be extremely cautious with it and do not invest any more than you're willing to lose. Before we get to it, make sure to smash like. If you're new, you can subscribe, tick the bell, all that good stuff. You'll be notified on any future videos or when I go live. And you can follow us over on X, formerly Twitter. Handle for that is @GroupPow. Going to be using that as my platform of choice going forward. So we will take a look at the chart here in just a moment, but we did have a pretty big recovery. We went from about 11 cents there in the first part of April, and then in the month of May we hit 33 cents. So the stock did jump about 200%, but here we are back down to lower lows. And on AYRWF on the USD side, it did hit 10 cents on Friday. And if you look at the Canadian equivalent, it was down 50% at the close. You can see here AYRWF was down almost 52% at the close. And we're penny stock. This was just a darling in the space not too long ago. We were trading at like $3 and $4 ahead of the Florida vote in Amendment 3 that failed. And it's been, like I said, they're getting into markets. There's going to be a lot of competition in Florida, right? It's dominated by TrueLeave. I think there's going to be some very tough times ahead for this stock. So they announced their delay of Q1 2025 financial statements and MD&A, management discussion and analysis. They're expecting a cease trade order and strategic review process. So we'll just go through some of my notes here. Essentially, they missed the May 30th, 2025 deadline to file their Q1 2025 financial reports. Something similar happened with Cresco, but they did report it yesterday, and stock was down about 10%, so not received well. But the MD&A and related CEO and CFO certificates, that was primarily the reason, due to ongoing debt classification assessments. So they're going to do a strategic review process. AYR is conducting a strategic review to address upcoming creditor payments and execute a strategic plan, and that's retaining, I think it's pronounced Moelis and Company, LLC, as its exclusive investment banker to explore different alternatives to restructure their capital. So yeah, like I said, a lot of this debt, this was a name that it's going to be very hard to come back from that. Negotiation with creditors, so they're negotiating with an ad hoc committee representing over 50% of the senior secured notes due December 10th, 2026. The cease trade order, so the OSC, Ontario Securities Commission, will issue a failure to file CTO instead of management cease trade order MCTO, prohibiting all trading of AYR securities in Canada. So not looking good. Expected filing timeline. They anticipate to complete the filing and interim documents by June 13th, 2025, and will update if the deadline is not met. But yeah, not a whole lot of pros from this. Maybe they can create some sort of capital structure, improve capital structure and financial stability. Can kind of see, it's going to depend on what they can negotiate with their senior lenders. They can get some favorable debt restructuring. But yeah, it's going to be, they're going to try to do it swiftly over the next couple of weeks. But yeah, missing this deadline it's just a testament of the financial and accounting challenges that the MSO has, right? And that they're going to continue to have. And a lot of these other MSOs are going to have these similar issues as well. But yeah, affecting investor confidence, obviously. That's why the stock was down as much as it was, in my opinion. And then the ongoing debt negotiations indicate financial strain, right? And if they're not resolved favorably, regulatory oversight, stricter regulatory scrutiny and oversight. So, like I said, I just hope people weren't too affected by this. And like I said, I was shouting for the rooftops. I was hoping I was wrong. But like I said, when I have a gut feeling about something, especially in the MJ space, in the crypto space, because that's where I eat, breathe, sleep this stuff. And it's usually right about 99% of the time. So, obviously we're not always right. We're not always wrong, but you gotta put your emotions at the door and not just buy something because of the fact that, somebody says it's a good investment or somebody on YouTube says it, right? You need to look under the hood. And like another huge red flag for me was the fact that, and we'll get into the technicals here in just a moment, but the fact that we had management shakeup, right? Like the fact that the CEO and CFO, like that's not a good sign. Whenever we had board members leave as well. Stephen Cohen left, went and joined Tilray board of directors, and he was the interim CEO and now on Tilray board of directors. Like the fact that there's that much management shakeup is not a good sign either. And that's one of the pillars that you want to look for. And all the red flags were there. The signs were there. We also had a bear flag target on the weekly time frame that confirmed that was targeting 16 cents. We hit that, and we failed to get above weekly EMA 12. You can see it acted as resistance. We almost closed above it, and then you want to get 2, preferably 3 candle closes. We got basically that first one, and the next one we were knocked right back down into weekly consolidation and lost our support there at 11 cents. On the weekly time frame, macros, we lost the 10-week moving average, so we were getting above it. Again, we got 2, but not the preferable 3, and then we were knocked right back down once we lost that 20-cent 10-week moving average. You can see the volume picked up as well, and absolute bloodbath. We also had a 50 and 100 weekly bear cross, so that was some indication that we could see a lot more downside as well and follow through. And then on the daily time frame, we bumped our head right at the 100-day moving average there at 29 cents. And then we came back down to the 50. That's typical, right? You reject, resistance, come back again, resistance, try it again, got above it. Okay, we got our 2, preferably 3 candles, topped out right at the 100. And then you usually back test that 50, right? Especially after such a prolonged downtrend. And then once we lost that, it was just, a race to the bottom. And, when you see a headline like that, delay of Q1 financials, like that happened to Cresco, but they didn't have expected cease trade order and strategic review process. They don't have nearly as much financial obligations. AYR, like I said, is in for a tough time. So if you need to vent, let me know your thoughts and opinions on this in the comments section. Like I said, I hope people didn't get too affected by this. And you really have to be, like, this isn't a time in the MJ space, in my opinion, to just throw a dart and hope for the best, right? You really need to be cautious about the companies that you pick. And, just because something's popular on social media, or just because, you're seeing something on Twitter or in the media, right, whether it be CNBC or BNN, you just have to be very, very cautious and look under the hood and look at what's happening at the company, right? They were leaving some of these markets while other MSOs were entering markets. They're leaving some of these important markets. I think it was like Illinois and maybe one other one. And then they said they were going to focus on Florida. Well, then what do you think about? Well, there's a lot of competition in Florida, and they failed to legalize, so there's going to be some struggle there. These MSOs were ramping up production in the event that they did legalize Amendment 3 and go legal in the state, and that didn't come to fruition. So again, that's just more things bottling up, management shakeout, high debt load. The warning signs were there. And like I said, these Canadian LPs coming in, eating their lunch as well with the hemp market, which is eating into their MJ, legal MJ. It's going to be a tough time, folks. And just imagine once the MSOs are able to sell legitimate MJ products there, not just from hemp, once it's no longer federally illegal, or maybe it goes medical, going to be a lot of competition there as well. So let me know your thoughts and opinions. If you need to vent, by all means. It's Rod with Power Group. Thanks again for joining us in the pursuit of wealth, and we'll see you again on the next video.